Hello, everyone. It's Melissa from Gilda's Club Grand Rapids, and I'm glad we could come together again today on this beautiful day here in our virtual clubhouse. We hope that we find you all well and enjoying your summer now. And I think it's probably the last week of school for a lot of you, and I hope that that goes smoothly. And congratulations to all those people who are graduating out there, either college or high school. It's quite a feat, and especially after all of this COVID, virtual school and everything. So excellent job. We're so happy for all of you. If you're new to Gilda's Club or to a cancer or grief journey, we're glad that you have found us. We'd love to talk with you and get you connected to our support community, our free support community. You could just give us a call at 616-453-8300 or look on our website, gildasclubgr.org. You can send us an email right from there. And then today, if you are enjoying our program, we'd love you to give us a thumbs up or to share this. It is being recorded, and so it will be available for viewing again and again, as many times as you would like, and also to share it with people who you think might really be interested or might be helpful. This information might be helpful for. And if you have questions for our guest today, or thoughts or feelings or anything, we'd love to hear from you. Just put it right in the chat, and we'll make sure to feed our guests those questions. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So today we have a wonderful guest with us. She's been with us before, not here on Facebook Live, but she came in from then Las Vegas and in Nevada, and she did a training on improv and how improv can be used for supporting caregivers. And so we really loved what she was doing, and so asked her back, and she graciously said yes. So this is Ruth Almén. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before we say hello officially. She is a clinical social work manager who has recently become the Congregational Operations Officer at our Saviour's Lutheran Church in Arlington Heights. Hills, I think, is in Virginia. Heights is in Illinois. So she also co-created the Improv for Care, a unique training program for family and caregivers, created in conjunction with Second City Improv and Caring Across Generations, as well as the co-investigator and study coordinator on a research project being done entitled, quote, "Can Training in Improvisational Techniques," that's not easy to say, "help reduce caregiver burden and depression," end quote. That's really interesting. I hope we get to hear more about that. Disability rights. Oh, wait. Ruth has previously worked with families through foster care, open adoption, wraparound, disability rights advocacy, as well as families while at the clinic in Las Vegas and Alzheimer's Association on the Upper Peninsula, yay, Michigan. And for those of you who don't know, up here in UP. And so welcome, Ruth. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Melissa.
You're from Michigan. You got to do the hand thing.
That's right.
Yeah, you got to do it.
And I'm so glad people know that again. So what that means, yeah.
Well, and you're coming to us today from Illinois and just outside of Chicago, correct?
Yes, out in the northwest suburbs.
Oh, well, welcome back to the Midwest. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's quite an impressive bio you have. You've done quite a few things.
Thank you. I have been lucky enough to do quite a few things.
Yeah.
And so, it was great though that it's nice to I spent my whole professional career in the UP, And so when Cleveland Clinic was willing to hire me to go out to Las Vegas, it was a great opportunity. And again, just speaks really well to all the good work that's been happening even in our rural areas, right around the country.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Wow. I was so glad to be able to be in part while I was working in the audience and hear a little bit of your presentation for Laugh Fest this year. And I know that we just had rave reviews and people felt it very, very helpful and wanted to know a little more too. So
great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And it'll be a bit of a teaser too on this, but again, happy to answer any questions at any time. If people put them in the chat, or I'm guessing if people contact you later, feel free to do that. And then they can get to me. We can talk more about it if people want to do that after.
Great. Yeah, they can. Yeah, you can. Anyone out there can email us, or we'll put your contact information.
Okay, great.
Right on this post, and so either way, they can let us know.
Great.
Yeah. So so many questions are popping up in my head, but we'll try to hone it down here. And so, tell us what is improv for caregivers? What is that all about?
Well, I want to give a little background because it is a little odd because most of us think of improv and we think of comedy. And of course, Gilda's is a great example of that. And what you've been able to show us and what we've appreciated about improv and really kind of the gift of this seemingly incredible skill to just in the moment say funny things that are connected. And that was really what I knew of improv. And 6 years ago, all I really knew was I knew about Second City. A lot of folks from Saturday Night Live came out of Second City, trained there. Lots of famous people we know. I'd also had one improv class in college and I loved it. And it kind of had these games that I used in my summer camp work. And so it was, again, kind of this idea about play and how you use play. But it was a really I loved the class. So how this all came about was I was in my new job in Las Vegas, literally 6 weeks. And my boss said, "Hey, do you want to go to Aspen?" And I said, "Yes."
Right.
Why are we going to Aspen? Right? Because, okay, I'll go.
Right.
And he, anyway, there's a big conference every year called the Aspen Ideas Festival. And someone was offering to send 2 people. And so he and I went to this conference and I had seen they were doing a workshop on improv in the afternoon. And then in the evening, the same group of people they were doing a workshop called 3 Caregivers Walk into a Bar. And I thought, all right, now I got to go see that, just to see what they have to say. And so that's when I first met and heard about folks from a group called Caring Across Generations. And I encourage everyone to Google them, check them out on social media. They're doing great work in terms of domestic workers and people who are paid caregivers. And working to help people get a living wage. We're working to help people get educated. So those of us who may need someone to come in the home, or if that's going to be our jobs, we're going to get the training and support we need. And they had this idea, and they'd only talk to each other about, wouldn't it be cool to use improvisation to train family caregivers or paid caregivers too? And so they presented this workshop, and literally I raised my hand at the end and said, well, if I called you and said, we want you guys to come do it for us, what would you be offering? And they said, we don't know yet because it's just our idea and we need someone who maybe can put this all together. And I thought, oh my goodness, I think that's supposed to be us at Lou Rouveau Center in Las Vegas. So from that idea, we sat down together, representatives from all of our organizations, and sat down and looked at what do we know the best practices are in terms of what families need, about people who are living with a chronic condition or a terminal condition, and what kind of support do they need? What do we know the best things are that exist? And then from that, how do we expand on that idea? So one of the things I loved about this idea was when they very first, even from the 3 Caregivers Walk into a Bar, it was all the tried and true improvisation. They didn't make anything up. They just said, here are the things we know about improvisation, which again tickled my memory from my class in college about the roots of that. But so as they talked, and having worked again with families and family caregivers, some of that also rang so true to me in terms of what I'd learned from families. And so to have good improvisation, much like to really have what you need as a family caregiver, you have to have a good team of people around you. You need constant spontaneity in the moment, because things change and you don't have the answers, and you're just trying to remain present and be with your loved one. And so that really oftentimes is about constant spontaneity, but it's about the importance of really good communication skills. And especially when maybe someone can't communicate with you the way they used to. Yeah. Whether that's in the moment or it's just, again, over time, is something that's getting lost to people, that ability to do that. Good improvisation requires embracing your mistakes and then letting it go, which we know if you're a family caregiver, like you can dwell on that stuff forever, right? But so how do you just say, yep, okay, what did I learn? Let's move on. And I had a family say this to me, and it just was so powerful that one of the things they learned through improvisation, and as a good introvert, they said was, it's not so much about me having to reach out to get help, because that to them freaked them right out. They were like, I'm so uncomfortable with that. But they said, but I can invite people in, like that I can do. And again, improvisation, again, as we'll talk about, you see how it really is about inviting people into what you're doing. And you also, with improv, again, it highly relies on you to say, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but going forward anyway, which again, for a lot of us, that's what happens. And it also is about, again, getting closer to living without regrets, because in improv, you can't be thinking about, oh, I said the wrong thing 5 minutes ago, because you're required to be in that moment and listening to everybody around you. And oftentimes that's what does happen with family caregivers, for sure. So from family caregivers too, some things that I learned over time, that people need help. Sorry, that's our doorbell. That people need help managing the things on their plate. That sometimes people, again, they're too tired to say what they need, and they need people around who will just step up, who can see them and hear them and think about what they need and just step up. That oftentimes family caregivers are embarrassed about the fact that they're humans in that sense, right? And so sadness, anger, frustration, we use, as you said, Melissa, the social work jargon and research word is caregiver burden. And it's not about a personal burden when we care for our loved ones, but the job of being a caregiver can feel burdensome. And so for people, again, they feel guilty about that. They think I should be doing this out of love, and they certainly are, but that doesn't mean you're not tired or frustrated or need help or need support. I'm
going to stop you there for a second, because I'm remembering, and a little personal disclosure here is that when I was in graduate school, I was asked to, because I'm just a natural caregiver, and here I am in school to help be trained to help people. She asked if her mother had a stroke. She asked if I would come in and be her caregiver. And I had taken care of kids forever, right? I was a YMCA director. I ran camps. I just did all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I just figured I was a shoo-in. I lasted one day. And the struggle, the emotional struggle, the physicalness I could do. It was the emotional struggle for me of, how do I communicate with this woman? How do I manage her personal self with dignity while not really knowing what I was doing? Of course, I had zero training, zero. And she, because she had a stroke, she was saying one thing and meaning another. Her brain was not on. And so I didn't also know enough about strokes either. Right. And literally just was traumatized and not able to go back the next day for this woman, and felt really bad about it. And I felt bad for the woman I was taking care of, and the woman who was looking for care for her. Right. I mean, it was just so And so training in that moment would have, and permission to make mistakes and to bring in humor or to attune to a person just would have been so helpful in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tricky because no family, is just, nobody wakes up and goes, oh, I'm a skilled caregiver now. Again, you had the heart of it, right? You could do that, but it's different. It's different with an adult. It's different if someone can't verbally communicate the way we're used to. And that can, right now for a lot of folks in this country, it's about a language barrier. And thankfully, again, there's large groups of people in our communities of color in this country who are providing that care to people, but oftentimes there can be a language barrier. And again, so how do we provide support to the caregivers? How do we acknowledge with the families, like, again, how do you better communicate? And know that there are a lot of ways, because we're all really good and we don't even realize sometimes all the skills we have about how do we better communicate. And like you said, one of the things too we've learned over time is, we train professional caregivers. So why wouldn't we train families, right? Why would we just expect them to just kind of get it? And that's, again, one of the best practices that we've learned over time, is that it's important that people feel like that, because these are roles and skills that they probably don't have or may not have. And also it becomes a job. If your relationship with the person you're caring about changes in any way, it is a bit of tasks that you're taking on. And one of the other things too, we're really great about saying, you got to do self-care, you got to do self-care. And it's really important, again, to start reframing that, to say, again, if you're so tired that you can't even ask for what you need, how do you even do self-care? And so how do we find a way, again, and I think Gilda's is just a perfect living example about, we do that together. We say, we know that you need support and we're going to welcome you in and we're going to find ways to do that. Feeding people, again, is such a great example of, we know everybody's got to eat, right? So how do we just step in to do that, and how important that is?
Well, and we often talk at Gilda's Club about the difference between self-indulgence and self-care. And I think that culturally, we think that self-care is, chocolate and ice cream and bubble baths, when in actuality, self-care is going to a group to talk, to connect with people, downtime, or taking care of your bills and cleaning your own house. Those are as life-giving as chocolate.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I want to, and you brought up an interesting point too about the issues with that the person you were caring for at the time, right? Because of the stroke and her language challenges, right? She said one thing and she meant something else. So part of the roots of improv too, which I learned that very first night in Aspen, were that the roots of improvisation in this country come from social work. So I won't go into that big and heavy, and you can contact me later if you want the full blown, I love Jane Addams, social work, and improv discussion. But back in the late 1800s in this country, when we had so many immigrants coming into this country, started actually here in Chicago. And so in these, what they were called settlement homes that Jane Addams and her friends founded, was they had all these children coming together, and they needed to find someone who could, again, help like you did, and I've done, right? How do we play games with the kids? But she had this challenge of, these kids don't all speak the same language. So how do we, again, bring these kids together? So part of the connection then was, she found a woman through the social work connections named Viola Spolin, who is the mother of improvisation in this country. And it's her son who founded Second City. So it's this really kind of clear connection. But I think all the time about, again, that issue about what do you do and how do you bring people together to do some common goal if you don't speak the same language? Yeah. And so what she believed was, and has worked on, is that through play and games, that those are ways, again, that we learn new things really easily, and also that we foster connections. And also reminds us of how little, all of our communication is only, verbal is only 7%. So we rely on, I talk with my hands too, but we rely on facial expressions, and we rely on tone of voice, and we rely on our physical presence. And so there's so many things, again, that we can use to help us communicate things, and that we use all the time with people. It's why, again, when we first all put on masks, everybody got freaked out, right? Because they're like, I don't even know what that person's thinking, or, right? I mean, we were so confused, and then we got really used to looking at people's eyes. And it's just a great example, again, about how skilled we can be and what tools we have that we can put to use.
Yeah.
So out of all of that came, again, this idea about improvisation, and when we play together, how much more quickly we learn and we can build community. And what are the important pieces to that? So, and Melissa, I said you're going to be my partner in crime here today. So one of the tools that we use when we meet with family caregivers initially is that we have them do a name game. And again, most of us have probably done a name game before. But even on Zoom, because we did 4 classes in person, and then when I left there, we just completed our 4th class on Zoom. So you can do a lot of these things on Zoom. It's not the same, right, as being in person. But so one of the things we would do, and all of you who are out there watching, even if you're watching the taped version, I want you to think about this and look into your camera and then do this with me. So I'm going to say my name, and then with the gesture, and then Melissa, you'll repeat that. You'll repeat my name and my gesture, and then you'll do the same. Okay. So, Ruth.
Ruth.
Okay, now do yours.
Melissa.
Melissa. So again, these are just little tricks that, again, are playful and they're fun. And it helps us, again, get out of the part of our brain that's checking us too much. So we developed this 6-week class. That's one of the first things we did. The first session is we talk about playing and what it means to play. And then we also talk about ensemble and telling your story. And so it's also important for people to realize, because over the years, I had a lot of families that said, I don't have anybody to help me. And that was, I mean, across the board in all my jobs. But when you start listening to someone's story and said, tell me about your story and your family, then they'd start saying things like, well, there's a woman from down the street who comes and picks up my kids for church on Sunday mornings. Well, that's a huge help, right? And so as you start listening, and sometimes, again, it's about how do you, again, invite people in. And so we also really talked with people about listening in new ways to other people. And so we play games. There's a game that we do in person, and you can do online also. And it's called Red Ball. And you literally just pretend you have a red ball. And then Melissa, I would say, Melissa, red ball. And I toss it to you and you catch it. And then you say, red ball, thank you.
Red ball, thank you.
And then toss it back however you want. Red ball, thank you. So there's lots of things we can do. And in person, we'll add different things too. But so part of that is thinking about, Melissa's got to be paying attention to me and looking and seeing what I'm doing. I had to be ready when I said, throw it back however you want, right? I had to look to see, you're just going to gently toss it, and when we get in the Brady Bunch squares, even people kind of pour it down to someone a little bit. And so again, we begin to think about how important it is to be looking at someone, how important it is to be making eye contact with someone, sometimes having to listen to multiple things, but knowing who's the person I really need to be listening to. Yeah. And certainly on Zoom, we've learned again about the distractions that can happen and how important it is to stay focused on the person in front of us. And what we find again was really quickly in that first class, people really enjoyed that kind of one-on-one time or one-on-two time with people and really listening, and certainly those larger group exercises. So again, knowing that you need to build an ensemble and thinking about listening to the person. And a lot of family caregivers would say, I've stopped doing those basic things. We know what's best is if you can be in front of someone when you're talking to them or trying to communicate, making eye contact. But a lot of people are, again, they're like, I have to make dinner. I'm in the other room. And someone who said, I have stopped doing that because I'm so busy and have so many things to do. And really what I learned over time was families want the more quality time with their loved ones. That's what they really want, but they're trying to get through their to-do list. Yeah. So how do we get things off their to-do list so they can have that time? So they feel like, again, maybe they just have to shut dinner off and just go in the other room and sit together to talk.
Well, that's such an interesting point. And I don't know if it was the last time I was on Facebook Live, but we were talking about putting on our to-do list that connection time.
Mm.
So then you
Wonderful.
feel like it's part of what you have to do that day, and it gives you permission to just lean into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm gonna use that. Thank you.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
red ball.
Yeah, right. Yes, yes. Oh, so our second session, we talk a lot about ensemble. And again, this can fall into, I'm sure, Melissa, you guys talk about this a lot, is how do you ask for help? The same person who would give the shirt off their back and do anything for anyone else sometimes has a hard time accepting that help. Yeah. And so it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing in the culture today, but it's totally okay. And what it means sometimes is, again, that's going to give you that time that you have on your list, that connection time, or that time to, again, take a break or take a shower or, walk the dog and not have to worry if, your loved one's okay. But the idea, again, about moving from that, it's just self-care to it's kind of this community care model that someone's going to help me care for my loved ones so I can go and do what I need to do. So I can come back and be with them and just be as fully present as possible. So the importance, again, we talk a lot about ensemble. The good improv folks will say, never go to a one-person improv show because improv relies on a team of people, and it relies on them to keep a conversation that's connected so that it's not funny if people say things that don't make any sense, right? In an improv show, right? What's funny and the brilliance of it all is that they're adding to what the last person said. Yeah. And so it's so important. And they said too, I loved it in the very first workshop, they said, before we go on stage, we get in a circle, everyone puts their hand on the shoulder of the person in front of them and says, I got your back. And they go right around the circle. I got your back. I got your back. And for many of you, again, I hope that you feel like there's at least one, if not two people. And if you don't have them, come to Gilda's, because they'll be the ones with the hand on your shoulder to say, I got your back. Yeah. So it's so important for all of us to know that. So then week 3, we move into more of a sharing and listening. Improv, the famous quote is yes and, because again, it's that idea about taking what someone's given you and saying yes, and, which means you're going to build on what they're saying. And so again, that can be a really good idea. It can be a funny line, but if it's about literally communicating with your loved one too, what that means is, like, they might say something that doesn't make any sense. And so it might be about you kind of saying and being, saying like, were you talking about this? For those of us who know someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, and oftentimes, again, their memory for present time may not be good. And people get anxious about, I don't know what to say. And we know people lose friends and people stop coming over. But if someone starts talking about, even that, I want to go home, if you know about their home or know a little bit about their home, again, when you can say to them, oh, didn't you grow up on a farm? And so again, the yes and is, no matter what someone says, you build off that. It's a challenge. I can tell you, family caregivers will say, I really tried that, like it was really hard. But again, it helps people with conversation. If you know you're saying the wrong thing, and for a lot of folks, that's what happens, and it's embarrassing. It gets really hard. People then kind of pull away if they feel like they can't stay in a conversation. But so if you can help someone, no matter what they say, make that be okay and ask them a question about that, or just include them in those conversations. Yeah. We do an exercise where we have people one-on-one have conversations, and someone just says something. It can be something important to them. And then the next person responds and says, they repeat the last sentence and then say, what's important about that is, and then they say what they feel like is important to that person. And I think for a lot of us, again, sometimes we're listening, getting ready to say the next thing, and not just listening. So again, we talk a lot about what is it, again, that is important about what that person's saying. And then to ask them that question. And for folks, again, who are living with, first time living with cancer, or cancer that's come back, or family members afraid of what's going to happen, it's hard sometimes to say what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So that idea about if we could say to someone, it seems like what's important about that to you is, and maybe you help them get those words out then. And your ability to then care for someone or be with someone or find the support they need is much better if we know what that is. But it takes listening and it takes time. And that's the tricky part too, is right. Communication, good communication takes more time.
Yeah. And it sounds like really an adjustment to, especially if a person, well, really whenever they have acquired a need to have a caregiver, that you're meeting a new person. This is, even if you've lived with them all your life, this is a readjustment to this, and it slows everything down. This now I've already forgotten. I'm thinking yes and right.
Mm-hmm.
And that it slows everything down so that you have this opportunity to start to adjust and start to get to know what might be important in this moment or at. I remember when my dad had dementia. It's actually 3 different kinds of dementia, and one with Lewy body, and it comes with a lot of delusions and scary delusions to them. And so, you know, he thought there was somebody bleeding on his bed, and it was difficult to have a conversation about that. It was difficult to think that my dad, who, you know, always knew what he was going to say and everything, had these interesting ideas now, and to open up, we would ask him about those things, and often it would help us get a clue on how to help his brain understand we could dissipate them.
Yes.
And so counterbalance what was going on, and you know, take the sheets off the bed and put a new set of sheets on.
Right.
You know?
Right.
No more blood. And so, yeah, that was just always really helpful to us. But it sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's in the 4th session, we call it having difficult conversations. And it's those conversations, Melissa, right? It's again, like for folks living with Lewy body, it can just be, again, nobody's prepared for that. Right.
Yeah.
And so how do you have a conversation with someone who says there's blood all over the sheets?
Right.
Right. And so what you do is just that a yes and is to say, oh, okay, you know what? Well, let's clean these sheets up. Right. Even if they're just freshly on the bed, you know, right. And boom, they're gone. But you have to talk to someone and hear what they're saying. And it can be so hard, right, for us to hear what they're saying.
Right.
But it's incredibly powerful. And I think all of our work to really encourage folks living with any disease to tell us about their experiences is so crucial for us to know what to do and to figure out, again, how to be prepared for those moments. And to allow everyone to have that sadness that goes along with that. Because we hear oftentimes too, people say, again, people that have been married for a long time and say, you know, there's someone in the house, but it's like they're not here because can't even have a conversation with them. And so how do I, you know, again, keep them engaged? How do I, again, keep them occupied? And so it's that reminder that, again, there's ways to do that. And there's things that you can do. And we want to make sure that, again, you got enough to eat and you're getting enough sleep and you're, you know, feel loved enough that you can keep doing that because it's hard work. And week 5, we talk about embracing mistakes and change, and the idea about how do we pivot. So Melissa, I'm going to have you do a game with me. So we're going to tell a story, everyone, one word at a time. And literally, Melissa and I, this is just total pure improv. So we're just going to go back and forth and tell a little story. And then Melissa, if you get stuck or you think the story's done, you'll do this, or I'll do this if I think it's stuck or done. So I'll get started. So today,
I
went
out
in
my
new
raincoat.
It's going good there. So this is a great game because it's fun to watch people's brains, number one. But when you do this with 5 or 6 people too, so I had no idea, right? You were going to land on raincoat or go there. At one point I thought about car in my head. And so I know that was brief, Melissa, but at any point that you say, oh, wait, that took a weird turn. I didn't expect that to go that way.
Did I feel like that? Oh,
yeah.
No, not really. I think you said the word out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So maybe there, I had to think about that for a second. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's what happens all the time, right? I mean, when someone's sick, when you're caring for someone, you have an agenda for the day, you're expecting here's how things are going to go. And suddenly like, it's not going that way, right? Yeah. Like things happen all the time. And so how do you, again, know that you're going to be okay. And you can, no, we're going to go this direction now and take care of these things. And it's hard when there's a big to-do list and you feel like most of it's on your shoulders. But again, how do you just know that you'll be okay? And be able to move and respond in that different direction. And we don't always do that well. And some of it, like I said before, is about like, how do you just say like, well, all right, that didn't work. Next time I'll do something differently. Just what happens in improv, because you got to keep going. Sure. It doesn't matter. And sometimes those can be little gifts for people. The unexpected things that happen that you just never intended. And then it worked out really well. And maybe again, it's about, I was cooking dinner and now I got to shut dinner off, but I come in and, suddenly we're having this great time together. Maybe it's 5 minutes and maybe it's an hour, right? But suddenly like, dinner, right? We'll be all right. So moving on, being present enough and listening enough and knowing that you're going to have the skills to do that and be there with that person in the moment. And it's also too, again, about understanding like what's too heavy for you. And what are the things, again, that you can literally, the idea about if you made a to-do list for all those people who say, let me know if there's anything I can do to be of help. Yeah. And you know who needs it, right? But have a list, right? And say, I would love if you could do these things. And so part of that, again, is knowing that there's going to be things that you can use, you can let people do for you that you'd be more than happy to get off your list. And everybody's list is different, right? Because everybody's got their own pet peeves. Like if I never had to make the bed, I would be so happy. But sometimes I do for myself and others. Yeah. And that's just the deal. But so if those things exist, and those can be good things, again, either friends, or if you do hire someone to come in, right, then you know what service to look for to help you with that. And the other really big pivot, again, for anyone who's living with a chronic or terminal health condition or a family member, is that the big pivot really is, this wasn't how I thought my life was going to be. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's just grief. I mean, I don't mean to say it's just grief, but grief we know at some level, right? So I think sometimes people are like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And it's just raw grief. And the constant, I mean, Melissa, like you talked about your dad, right? It's just grief when you're like, ugh, and it's not how you had seen your dad ever, like those things, again, that we constantly have to live with. And that's a big pivot. And just saying like, nope, this is not the life that I expected, or that we planned for, or that we ever imagined. But we have this. So what do we do here in this moment? And how do we have this best life? I had a good friend years ago who said to me after an Alzheimer's conference, she said, I grieved my mom a long time ago. She said, but that courageous woman with Alzheimer's, that's who I miss. Mm. And so she had grieved that relationship with her mom, and now in this new relationship. And again, it was just obviously really powerful for her. So it's okay to recognize that it's grief and we're grieving, and there will be something on the other side of that. Yeah. And so again, Gilda's Club is so crucial. I mean, you're helping people do this work, live with this work, live with what comes after someone's loved one may have died. It's so crucial for us because there are things on the other side, on the other side of our grief. Yeah. And that comes to our last class we do in Improv for Care, is really talking about, now that you have all these skills, you know how to build on your community, like how do you do that? We ask people again, we do some of people's big favorite games during that time and really talk with them again about like what this has meant and what they've tried to do. And you talked a little bit, Melissa, about the research and just that. So we, where I worked at LaRuvo Center as a branch of Cleveland Clinic, again, was so proud to be doing research on this class again, because we want to make sure it was the best thing possible.
Yeah. And
so we know that one of the big impacts for family caregivers, and certainly one of the things that can cause people to go more quickly into a facility to live or a different community and not be able to stay at home, has to do with the caregiver's perception of someone's illness, which is really interesting. But it makes sense, because again, if you think like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, and this is, if you don't, and everybody's different, and depending on how much your workload is, and again, what you're living with. But we also know it's really common for caregivers like their loved ones living with an illness to have high levels of depression and anxiety. And it's a really important thing, again, to be cognizant of. So we looked at, could this class in some way help those issues and address those issues? And we targeted specific objectives around those. And our objectives, again, came from my experience with other caregiving classes, and really looked at how do we help people build a sense of community. So as the professionals, where do families call if it's after hours when we go home? Because we need to go home too, right? So who do they have that they can call? Well, if you've built a community and a support circle and friends, that's who you can call. And that's so important. And people who get it, right? Because not everyone gets what you're living with.
Right.
So that's so important. And that people, again, are able to identify all the skills that they have so they feel more confident in their abilities. But so we looked at specifically around issues around if your loved one experiences, and because we were working primarily with families with memory loss, not everyone, but people who we knew were experiencing agitation, depression, apathy, delusions, hallucinations, sleep problems. And so they call those neuropsychiatric symptoms. And so what happened was that we saw in the very early research, but we're able to publish it, that over time, even though people reported their loved one's symptoms got worse, that either their own emotional health stayed the same or got better.
Oh.
So there was something about this class that made people feel more equipped, I guess I would say. Yeah. Equipped to do their own caregiving, equipped to get help, equipped to not feel alone, equipped to feel like if they needed help, they knew where to get it. And in the meantime, they built another whole circle of friends. They'd had a break. These classes were in person. They were 2.5 hours. And I thought, there's no way people aren't coming. They absolutely came. We started an hour and a half online and had to bump it to 2 because we just didn't have enough time. And because people just really enjoyed each other and were so present in the time in the class together.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. What a gift. And all of those lessons that you talked about and all of what it helps guide people towards are good for just regular life too, honestly. Yeah. Right. And this attuning to yourself and others, and just all of it. So very, very valuable. Very cool. Well, I hope now that you're here in the Midwest, I mean, online is online, but that we can offer more of these kinds of workshops for our community here in Grand Rapids. And
yeah, that would be great. I really, again, appreciate my time, and I do have a very soft spot in my heart for Grand Rapids.
That's great. Well, there's a big spot for you here. So we're running a little bit late, so I'm going to just draw us together. But thank you so much for sharing this really just delightful and important information, and for all your work you're doing to support caregivers and people who need care, because it really changes their experience also. Yes. Yeah. And that's really important. So. And again, if any of you out there are interested in learning more about this class or this topic, please just get a hold of us. You can send an email, you can call us. and Ruth's information will be listed, and so you can reach out to her directly and be able to ask her questions, or maybe want her to come and speak at your community. That would be great. Share the wealth here. So thank you again for coming to us. I know in all of your new job and new home and everything, so appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So it's good to be together again, all of you. And if you're new to a cancer or grief journey or a caregiving journey and you'd like more information, please just get a hold of us, 616-453-8300 or gildasclubgr.org. Everything we offer is free of charge. We're a great community of beautiful support, and we'd love to get you connected. We have a full virtual and in-person program going on. And so whatever makes you most comfortable, we can work that out for you. All you have to do is get a hold of us. We have a couple of fun things coming up. One is a birthday bash for Gilda Radner, our namesake. We like to celebrate her birthday, once a year, once every other year or something. So we have that coming up. You can look at our calendar that's online. We also have our Camp Sparkle is back and in person, and it will be happening in the month of July. And that is for kids between the ages of first grade or maybe kindergarten and fifth grade. And there'll be lots of activities, 10 until 2 at the clubhouse. This lunch, food, as you said, Ruth, we're going to be feeding people again. So that's awesome. So please look that up and come if you'd like to. If you're not a member of Gilda's Club and you're interested in doing that and you have a cancer or a grief connection, you're welcome to give us a call and we'll help you get connected with Camp Sparkle. And if you need some volunteer hours and you're in middle school or high school, we got a place for you too. So I think that's just about it. Let me just check my notes just in case. I think that is it. And we have I know what I want to say. Happy Pride Month starts today.
Happy Pride, everyone.
Yes. And next week, we're going to talk with a community member who is on a cancer journey and is part of the LGBTQA group, and is going to talk about access to treatment while on a cancer journey. And so look forward to that conversation. And yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you again, Ruth, and everyone take care, get outside.
Yes.
And it's gorgeous weather. It's not raining. You won't need your brand new raincoat, I promise. At least here in Grand Rapids. Maybe in Chicago, I don't know. So, all right, take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.